Hi, it's Liz from Lohas, Canada. I'm doing a scrunchie tutorial because many of you want to make your own scrunchies but want to do it seamlessly. So we're going to do a seamless scrunchie today. We're going to do it in two sizes, so a big one and a smaller one. The smaller one's great for kids' hair or side ponytails, or if you have really thin hair, you can put that up without that extra weight. And then the larger one will just be a normal scrunchie that you can normally find. So let's get into it. Alright, let's get into some of the supplies that you'll need. This is called a T-bar, and it's primarily used for drafting, but it works out really well when you're cutting out fabric or any sort of material that you want a straight line. You can also use a ruler just like that, or if you just have a normal ruler, that works out well. And these are pens. You can get different ones. You can use chalk. You can use anything to really trace it out. And something to cut with. So this is a rotary cutter. So these scissors have a flat edge at the bottom, and that's important when you're cutting out fabric so that the scissors stay flat. I found these at the thrift store, so they are out there. So these are pinking shears, and they have the little grooves on it so that they will help keep your fabric from not fraying as much. I did get these secondhand, but they're not able to sharpen it, so you'd have to hand sharpen it. So I'm going to be doing that later on. So it does make little edges, little square edges. You can get metal ones, and there are plastic ones. The plastic ones are really for paper. So you're going to need an iron and making sure that the right setting is on for your different fabrics. So everything is nice and smooth when you cut it out. And we will need some sort of elastic. I'm going to be using swimmer's elastic, and the width really does make a difference. We are going to make it with the 1/4 elastic. So the measurements for this, the large scrunchie, you're going to be doing 5.5 inches in length for the large one. And then with the smaller scrunchie, you're going to be making it into 5 inches. So for this tutorial, we're going to be doing the large scrunchie. So we're going to be cutting 5.5 inches for the elastic, and all the same steps for the large scrunchie is exactly the same as the smaller. So this is the small scrunchie, and that is the large scrunchie, so you can really see the difference. There's different materials that you can use, and so this is silk, which is really nice. It's really light, so if you have a lot of thick hair, silk might be the better bet for you because it won't add more weight compared to the linen. If you look at the linen, it look a lot heavier, and it doesn't have as much drape and flow as the silk does. So really thinking about what your material, and if you get a lot of headaches from having your hair up or anything, you want to use a lighter material. And we're going to be doing a top seam where we're going to be turning in the elastic. So it'll be seamless on this side, and then we will be putting the elastic in, and then just top stitching. If you don't have a sewing machine, you can also top stitch it by hand. For slipperier fabrics like silk, you can top stitch it just like that, and it works out perfectly. But for this tutorial, we're going to be sewing. So let's talk about fabric for a little bit. So this is linen fabric, and it does fray quite a bit. So if you're going to be using something that frays quite a bit, use pinking shears, maybe a serger, or maybe do some zigzags along the edge of it, because otherwise it'll just keep fraying. So this is silk. This is 100% silk. It's so great for your hair. The proteins are great for your hair, and it's really light. It's really drapey. Silk, though, you do have to use a different needle, a little finer needle. There's silk thread. You can also use cotton thread. You do want to use pinking shears on the edge of it for fraying. You can use your serger on silk, but it is a little bit different. You probably want to change your needles, and so it's a lot more hassle. So a lot of people just use pinking shears. So this is a serger or an overlocker, and so it just takes care of all the ends. So if you are going to be using a serger or overlocker, once you cut out your material, you will be serging it or overlocking it. You should be doing it with a corresponding thread, so either a green or a black for this. So for now, I'm just using white thread so you're able to see it on the green material. So because I don't have a fancy serger or overlocker, I'm just going to be putting knots at the end of these tails just so that they don't unravel. So with your material, you want to find your selvage edge. Every piece of fabric will have it. So you just want to see where your stretch is. So it goes this way for this piece of fabric and it doesn't go so much that way. So I want to cut my piece of fabric this way because I want the scrunchie to have more stretch than the other way. So for the small scrunchie, it'll be 2.5 by 15 inches. And then for the large scrunchie, you can cut out 3.5 by 26 inches. So it's quite a bit of fabric for the large scrunchie. So I just put some chalk on the fabric that have X's just to show your wrong sides. So you're going to put your right sides together with the ends. So all we're going to do is sew the ends together. So if you have directional fabric, you want it on the inside. I'm just using about 1/4 of an inch to sew this. If you've used the serger on your ends, you want to make sure you're well over that line just so that the threads from the serger don't show through. And you're just going to back stitch back and forth, sew down to the end, and then that side will be done. So that edge has been sewn. So what we're going to do is just lay it down flat, so again, wrong side facing up, and we're just going to open up where we just sewed so it lays flat. So this is how you're going to make it seamless. You're going to take the top part and fold it about 3/4 of the way down. You're just going to press that down. And then you're going to take that bottom fabric and meet it to that top fabric that you just pressed over. Alright, so that's all you're going to do for that piece of fabric. And then you're going to take the fabric closest to you and meet it at the top. And I've just got little bits of thread everywhere. So I'm just going to show you again. You're going to take that one piece of fabric, fold it down, take the other one, fold it up, take the bottom and fold it to the very top. So you're going to have a tube in the middle. Alright, I'll show you once more. So the fabric, take the top piece, fold it down 3/4, bottom piece, fold it up to meet the top one. So it creates a tube for the middle, and then you're going to take that fabric on the bottom and meet it at the top. So you're going to be sewing those tops together and moving the tube along, as you'll see, and I'll show you how I sew it. So that will be moving the tube along and sewing it on your machine. So just a little back stitch before we start, and then we'll just keep sewing and moving the pieces together. You can pin this if you would like as you're going along, but I find it not really necessary. You just match it up and go a bit slower because you'll be constantly moving the tube around. So you're gathering more fabric from the inside. There's the tube inside, and you're just gonna pull it. And you always want to make sure your needle is down when you're stopping and pulling it. So when you pull the tube, it'll create more fabric, and then you just keep on sewing. So where we sewed the ends together, you want to make sure that the bottom and the top are lining up. Otherwise, they'll be a little bit off when we turn this around, and it will be showing on the other side of the scrunchie. So you just want to make sure that they match up. So I just want to be clear, I'm not pulling my fabric through, I'm just guiding it along. So you're just going to constantly pull the tube from the bottom and pull it from the top so that it's able to slide through until you're going to reach where you started sewing from. And with this, you want to leave a little hole. So I found my end, and that's where I started sewing, but I want to leave a hole because we're going to turn this inside out. And your hole can be as big or as small as you require. We're going to be top stitching it after, so just think about that of how big or small your hole is. But if your hole is way too small, you might not be able to turn it. And if it's way too big, you'll have a lot of top stitching to do. So just do wherever makes you feel comfortable. Maybe start with an inch or maybe an inch and a half, and we'll be able to turn that pretty easily. And once we get to that inch and a half opening, we're just going to back stitch to make sure it's secured into place. And then we'll have that opening to turn the scrunchie inside out. As you can see, my linen is already starting to fray, and I did not use pinking shears on it. So we're just going to take that inner tube and turn it the right side out. So there'll be a little bit of a pull that you need to get over the hump right here, and that's just where we sewed those two ends together. It's just a little bit fiddly, but once you get over that bump, then the rest will be really easy just to pull it through. Alright, it's already pulled through. I got lots of little ends to clip. So what we're going to be doing is getting an elastic to put into here. So you want 2 safety pins. I find this is the most effective way. You're just going to take one safety pin and put one end through it. And then you'll be taking that safety pin and actually pinning it into the fabric. And you can hold it, but sometimes when you're going around, it slips out of your hand and then you continuously have to redo it. So if you're using silk, you might want to hold both of them and not pierce into your fabric. Even with silk, you use different silk pins that are more fine. So I would just hold on to them if you're using silk. So you're just going to guide the pin through the fabric all the way to the other side. and the pins are coming out. So I've reached the other side now, and I just want to take the safety pin off of the fabric, but make sure you hold on to it because it is quite stretchy because we're scrunching up all that fabric together, so it does want to disappear into the fabric. So hold those two sides together, and then we'll go back over to the sewing machine to sew them together. Now, I usually like to cross them, and that just makes it a little bit more durable. You can overlap them, but I like to cross mine. So I use tweezers to hold it together to get underneath the sewing machine, put my needle in, and then put my presser foot down. For this one, I change it to B, which is just the gray B, so it'll go zigzag back and forth, and that just provides it a little bit more durability, a little bit more strength, so it's not just a straight line. Just make sure you turn your sewing machine back to the regular setting. So now we have this opening here, and it just needs a top stitch. So just for this purpose, I'm still using white thread, but you would use either green or you could use black, just so it hides it a lot more. You're just going to lock it into place and then do a nice top stitch on there. If you have a top stitching needle, you can use that, or if you don't, you can also just do it with a regular needle. So if your fabric at the top does not line up, don't worry. You can just hand stitch it together and try to manipulate the fabric together. So that's it. You got your large scrunchie. If you want to do a smaller scrunchie, you do exactly the same method, just with the different measurements. So thanks for watching this tutorial. I hope you guys are all making a crazy amount of scrunchies, making them for your friends, making them for other people. Once you get the hang of it, it's really easy. It's just that little fiddly bits that when you first start off, like anything in life, it always just feels awkward, and then once you do it more and more, it just becomes really natural. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll chat with you later. Bye!